you might be able to see in the title, like I say, I ain't very up to scratch on TikTok lives, but going to talk more about toxic parenting, the sort of healing journey and stuff like that. And anybody that knows, that follows my stuff, will know that all of this is recorded and filmed and ends up on my YouTube channel, as well as making some sort of smaller reels and stuff and TikTok videos and all that kind of jazz out of it. Obviously, well happy if people want to interact with me while we're in here. Any questions and stuff like that, I'm more than welcome, all of that stuff. So yeah, these don't tend to fill up as quickly necessarily as Instagram, but I'm going to jump straight in with this question that's come in here. Hi Josh, struggling with overthinking and my partner has said she is taking her time to rest. Struggling with overthinking and my partner has said she is taking her time to rest. It's difficult without context for me to give you too much on that. There's a lot of context to that, so like I don't really know what's going on with your partner and why she might say that. But look, the overthinking I think is something that a lot of us do. And what I would say is that using things like breath work can be really, really useful. In fact, I'll start off with an advert. I'm doing a breathwork session on Thursday. It's completely free. Have a look at the link in my bio. Go and check it out. Come along on Thursday, and it's free. And by signing up, you get access to the recording as well. So if you can't make it live, don't worry about that. You can get access to it. Hello, you keep me strong. Thank you so much. You're saving lives. That's amazing. Thank you very much. That means a lot for you to say that. So look, I wanted to start. I did a post not too long ago, or fairly recently. Somebody on a live had asked me how to deal with the guilt of having cut ties with a toxic parent, and I explored the idea that normally it's much closer to shame what people are feeling than it is actually guilt. And so a lot of people came on, there's a lot of comments, it was viewed quite a few times. A lot of people were talking about it being a lot closer to grief. And I want to just talk about that because I think it's true and I think it's really important to understand. Anybody that lives with a parent that has any kind of struggle, be it it could be addiction, they could be a good person that has addiction, they could be a good person that has mental health struggles or mental illness of any kind, or they could be the toxic parent that we're talking about. And I'm going to focus on the toxic side of it. Your mic goes from distance to near is what I'm hearing. Is anybody else experiencing that on the microphone? Because if so, then it's probably the AirPods, and I'll take them out. Let me just see. Hang on a sec. Yeah, everybody else is hearing that. Okay, let me chuck these down. Wait 2 seconds. Boom. There you go. That's probably going to be better. So let me start over with what I was saying, and I'll get rid of the headphones, and we'll go without the headphones now, because obviously there's something wrong with the AirPods there. So look, I was just talking about how I posted about how no, you're good. I'd rather you let me know than everybody sit there and say this and not realize it was like it was. So I did a post about having cut ties, and somebody said that they were feeling a lot of guilt, and I said that it was probably closer linked to shame, and that obviously resonated with a lot of people, but a lot of people talked about grief, and I want to talk a little bit about the grief that people that cut toxic parents out experience, because what I would call it is living grief. Now, some people alluded to it being living grief, but I just want to sit there for a moment and talk about living grief and what I'm talking about when I mean that. In some ways, living grief is even more complex and I'd say harder to navigate than grief itself, because what particularly toxic parents have a habit of doing is jumping back in and out of your life in the way that they do, right? And they're very good at knowing what strings to pull, how to jump in and try and pull you back in, and how to kind of love bomb you and how to stonewall you. They know how to do all of that, right? So there's no like line that's happened. So I lost my dad when I was 9, right? My dad had a problem with alcohol. But what I've been able to do in my life, although it took me a long time to do it, is reach a stage where the line is drawn. I have something definite, right? It's clear my dad is gone, he's left this world, and the grieving process begins undisrupted. undisrupted, yeah, undisrupted, and I get to navigate it in the way that suits me based on my terms of my life. With living grief, it's a lot different. With living grief, we're talking about a parent that is still there, somebody that is still there, someone that, if we're really honest with us, and I know a lot of people have found complete freedom from disconnecting with them and cutting them out, but at some level, somewhere within us, there is at least a small part of us, and I think for a lot of people, it's a big part of them, that still craves that, that still craves that relationship, still wishes, right, at least, that parent could be what they wanted them to be. And so this living grief is way more complex and it's way more messy, right, because there's no clear line. And I think a lot of people experience that kind of grief, right? You're mourning the parent that you never had. You're mourning the parent that you wish you had. And every now and then you may even get glimpses, right, where the stars align, where you feel like that parent might be coming back or might still exist. And so I think it's just really important to understand the complexities of it, right? I think for a lot of people, it's way more complex than anyone else is ever really going to be able to understand. And that's why I think self-compassion becomes really, really important. Somebody says, I finally went no contact with my mum, her sister and my two brothers. The smear campaign has started. Look, the smear campaign as well, and I've talked about this in the past, but it's worth talking about again. The smear campaign is the way that the toxic person, be it a parent or an ex-partner or anything else, continues to abuse you from afar. It's very clever in how it's done, although I don't like to use the word clever because it gives them too much credit. But it's done in subtle ways using half-truths. So often it's not full of, although there might be some just outright lies that have no truth whatsoever, but often what they'll use is like semi-truths, half-truths, ones that to the naked eye, to the people that don't know the situation, kind of seem very feasible. And then even when you try and argue back against them, you could start listing, the things that they've done or the things that they've said. And to the normal eye, to the person from outside looking in, it looks like you're the crazy one. And that smear campaign will continue for a long time. And when it's a toxic parent giving you the smear campaign, we exist in a society who tends to just back them no matter what, regardless of how abusive they are. Unless it's sexual abuse, right? Which sounds ridiculous. Unless it's sexual abuse, there's even levels of physical abuse that our society seem to want to allow the grace to the parent. They seem to want to allow that, even when it was done throughout your whole childhood and you were a defenseless child. Even that physical abuse, and I'm talking violence, that kind, right? Society seems to want to almost take the side of a parent, particularly if that parent presents really well in society, which they are very, very good at doing. It seems like sexual abuse is the only one where society would seem to kind of side with you. And even then, sexual abuse becomes really, really complex, and it's hard for people to then even be able to reach out anyways, right? Like it is with all abuse. So in some ways I shouldn't compare them, but I think people that I'm talking will know what I'm understanding, what I'm talking about here. Sad to say, I had my worst experience from my dad during the transition of my mum's death. And this is the hardest thing, everybody accepts that there's horrible people out there, right? You see horrible things happening all the time in the world, right? And we sort of look and we know, we see these horrible people, and we understand that they exist, and we'll even talk about them openly. And then when we sort of open up to the idea that they're parents, it's like, wow, then we have this really toxic idea that you should back and love family no matter what. And that's just not true. Actually, if you're going to be abused, it's likely to be by somebody in your family rather than somebody outside of your family. Statistics will show you that quite clearly, right? So actually, we should be teaching people to really explore all of their relationships. I'm a parent myself. This is one of the questions I get asked a lot, actually, by the way. are you a parent yourself? People ask me, and I think they're waiting for me to say no so that they can say, when you have kids yourself, you'll change your mind. I actually have 6 children, and I go out of my way to tell my children, if you can't speak to me, right, about something, for whatever reason it is, then you go and speak to your mum, right? Or if you can't speak to them, then you speak to your siblings. And if you can't speak to your siblings, then you speak to a teacher. And if you can't speak to a teacher, find another trusting adult. And I try and make sure they have trusting adults in there. So I try and keep family and close friends close so that my children have that. And I say to my children, if ever I do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable and you feel like you can't come to me about it and you want to explore it with somebody else, go and explore it with somebody else first. And then when we're ready, let's try and explore it together. Now, if I felt like I was doing something that was like abusive or emotionally coercive or any of those things, then I might be saying to my kids, what happens in our house stays in our house. Don't air your dirty laundry with other people. I might say that, but the only reason I would say that is if I was really desperately trying to hide something. I know if anybody came to me and said, your daughter or your son has come and said this to me about what you're doing, I'd be like, wow, that's really upset me. Let's explore it together. Let me lay everything on the table and try and make sure that we can find something. When we're talking about toxic parents, the reason, and I believe that we exist in a toxic culture, right? The reason these messages are fed to us: trust your family no matter what, love them no matter what, don't tell anybody else, it's nobody else's business what goes on in the home and all that kind of stuff. It's because we're terrified of the way that we're behaving and the way that we're showing up. So I'm always keen to talk about this in this open way because I don't think it's talked about enough. Now, let me say this, by the way, because it's quite important. I'm close to my mum and I lost my dad when I was young. So everything that I talk about when it comes to toxic parents is not because of my own parents, but actually because of the work that I do when I work with people that have experienced this. And because I know and love some people very close to me who have a parent just toxic in that way, right? And I see this push to get people to stay in an abusive relationship with somebody simply because they're their parent. And so why is it that I would say to somebody, well, look, if that person's treating you horribly and they're treating you with venom and they're nasty to you all of the time, I would tell them to cut them out. Why would I not say that if it's a parent? Let me ask this. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with here. But is a parent still toxic if they recognize the mistakes they've made and apologize? No, they're not. We all make mistakes. I'm a parent. If I get it right 20% of the time, I think I've done really well. My trauma plays out in my relationships. There are times when I go to bed at night and I feel terrible about myself in the ways in which I've showed up to my kids, right? But when I'm ready and when I can, as soon as I can, I be with my children and I say, listen, this is the deal here. That wasn't right of me yesterday. I revisit. I give them the opportunity to explore that. All parents are not very good, right? Let's be clear about that. All parents, even the best parents, are not very good. There's no manual. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, right? You're never ready to do it. That is not the same as what I'm talking about when I talk about toxic parents. It's not remotely the same. These people are awful. These people are awful, and they're all about themselves. And if you've experienced what it's like to have a parent that's like that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and you'll know the exact difference. The biggest kickback I get online is from people that are clearly toxic parents. And they don't like seeing the videos that I talk about. One that I really understand is people that have lost parents young and or lost parents tragically or lost them regardless of how they lost them. And there's a sense of resentment towards anybody that wouldn't try and find a relationship with their parent. I totally understand how they might look at somebody who's had to cut a toxic parent out and say, yeah, and be at least curious about why you haven't explored it. I totally understand that. And I understand why they might say that. But if they existed in the way that we're talking about, I think they would feel the same. Yes, Kappa, just ask the question. I'm going to do some questions now. So I just missed one back here. I'm going to go back. If the apology isn't backed with an action, yes, that's very important. You'll get apologies from a toxic parent, but an apology isn't, I say to my children actually, an apology isn't a word, it's an action. Yeah, so don't say sorry, right? Show me that you do that. And I would hope that my kids and anyone with a loving parent will know, my mum or my dad makes loads of mistakes and they get it wrong, but you know that they loved you. And if you're constantly all the time questioning if they love you, then that's different, right? What would you say about the guilt that you feel about cutting a parent out and the fear of them passing? Look, it's a really difficult one because I get asked this all of the time, because one of the people say, you'll miss them when they're gone. You'll miss them when they're gone. That's what the people say. And perhaps some people will. And perhaps there will still be some guilt there. I wish I could say to you, look, you won't feel guilty because you've done the right thing. I think for some people that might be the case. I don't think it'll be true for everyone. And that's sad and it's horrible, but you didn't ask for this. Nobody asks for this. So what do you do? I think these people with toxic parents have two choices. You either stay and feel crap when they died, or you try desperately to try and carve out and do what's right for you, try and find some freedom and put yourself first, and probably still feel crap when they die. I will say this as well, though. I've spoke to lots of people that have cut parents out who have then gone on to die, and they felt no guilt whatsoever because they had lived such a much freer life, having done what, having cut them out and put themselves first, that they didn't feel guilt. So yeah, let me go back and see what else I can find. Kappa, is your question, are we all part of the Matrix? Look, the answer is probably yes. I just don't know how relevant that is. There's a whole other... And there are people that rule us. Oh, sorry. Do you think we are part of the Matrix? Yeah, look, I can't answer that here. I haven't spoken and had contact with my father for 16 years. I'm almost 30. See, my mother can't see why I've cut her off. They never will. And this is the problem. If you try and rationalize with a toxic parent, right, and you'll do it all the time. People will do it all of the time, yeah? They will say to them, look, listen, can't you see that you've done this? And then you try and see it from their side. And then, you'll say this and you'll say that. And then normally you'll get like, how dare you? How dare you? Because the parents I'm talking about, they're incapable of self-reflecting, right? So they won't reflect and they won't see your rationale. So it becomes pointless, and it's like banging your head against a brick wall, and it makes you feel like the most unloved, unliked, awful person on the planet. And so why would you keep doing that? Somebody said, are you ticklish? You missed the fantasy parent. Yeah, I'm sure that's true for a lot of people. That's a lot of people are talking about siblings, so let me just touch on that as well, because if you did grow up with a parent that was toxic's such an umbrella term, but emotionally immature, even emotionally abusive, I think, for a lot of people. If you grew up with that, then you would have taken on a certain role within the family. And the problem is that toxic parents treat different children differently. So you might have siblings who, when you say that your experience as a child with your mum or your dad was horrendous, they'll be like, how can you say that? It was never that bad. The problem is you're making out like it was bad. But of course, emotionally abusive toxic parents will nearly always pick one child, or if there's more siblings, then one or two children that are the bad ones, and they'll pit them against the good ones, right? And they'll make the good ones really, really good, and that's part of the way that they abuse the ones that they're abusing, right? By making them watch how close and how loving they are with the other sibling. Now, what I would say is that the siblings that get the good treatment, somewhere within them are going to have the kind of emotional struggles as well, right? But then they're going to be much harder to see, and they're going to play out in different ways. And so if you break from the system in the way that you have, then you may find that the siblings are going to cut you out or are going to side with the parent. And I just think, I just think it's difficult when it comes to the siblings, yeah? But at the end of the day, in the end, you have to do what's right for you. Somebody said here, what about parents abused by their children? I don't know anything about that. People ask me this question a lot. What about children that are abused by, parents that are abused by their children? I don't know, man. What can I say about that? If my kids started abusing me, I don't know, man. I'd feel a sense of responsibility. I think, I don't know. I've never been there and I don't work with a lot of people in that situation. So I'm not going to comment on it. I'm not going to comment on it. But what I will say is what I've just said. And the difference in that is a child is never responsible for a parent's emotional well-being. I'll say this again. A child is never, ever responsible for a parent's well-being, nor should they be. I think people struggle with that. I think they struggle with that. People tell young kids to be brave for their parents a lot. Be strong for your mum or be strong for your dad. That's wrong. Children shouldn't do that. So there's a huge amount of responsibility put on children to be emotionally responsible for their parents, and it's wrong. Yeah, it's wrong. Like, there are times when their parents can't be emotionally available for them. I think that's true of all parents, right? It's true of me as a parent. I can't always be emotionally available for my kids, but we should live in societies that make sure that there are other adults to be available for the kids. Yeah, not that just the kids should become emotional responsible, because then that's enmeshment. So, you should never be responsible. And listen, let me say this off the back of that. If you're in your 30s and you're making decisions, and your decisions are feel heavily influenced by a parent, there's something wrong with that. You should be 30 years old thinking, what would my mum or dad think if I bought this house? Nah. Unless the thought is, my mum and dad would be really proud of me for finding happiness in this house. How did I learn all of this? I learned it by self-reflection and by questioning everything, particularly the ways in which I support people, particularly when I'm an ambassador for NACOA, which supports children affected by a parent's drinking. So that's the first thing that I would say. And I learned a lot from that. I learned a lot from listening to people with their experiences and allowing them the autonomy to tell me what they're experiencing. And what I used to do is, because my dad was an alcoholic, but was like a good man apart from when he drank, which doesn't make it okay, but that was the way that he was. I would try and push that onto other people. So I would say, you've got to find a way to forgive them, and you've got to try and find a way to love them and all that kind of stuff. And it's not true. The acronym is National Association for Children of Alcoholics, which is NACOA. You can find them on here. NACOA UK, and you should go and check them out as well. Let's have a look for a couple more questions. There's some crazy comments in here, by the way. It's not like this when you do it on Instagram. I suppose that's because this invites loads of people. No child should have the responsibility of being strong for their parents. No, they shouldn't, ever. And actually, it takes them away from their authenticity. I've had to distance myself from my parents and tried, but they're not putting the effort in. And imagine that. Like, why don't people think about this? Like, when kids cut parents out, it's not just happening like willy-nilly, like because some dude on TikTok and Instagram is saying if your parents are toxic, you should cut them out. I don't think it happens like that. One thing I did want to talk about, because I think a lot of people will have experienced this and know what this is like, and that is the really long the really long cryptic text message that you get that comes through from the toxic parent. If you've got an iPhone, it'll come through and it says read more and you have to click it. And it is like, you'll read it and it'll bamboozle you and it'll make you question your reality and it'll make you think you're going insane and it'll make you think that you're crazy and you get drawn into it and you're going to start trying to text things back and trying to get them to see it from your side, and they're going to get to try and see it from their side, and it sends you crazy, right? And the only thing you can do with those messages that are full of cryptic, You know, they sort of like say little things that make you think, oh my God, what does that mean? And they set the fear about you. The only thing you can and should always do, ignore, completely ignore. Don't read. Don't even read the first sentence. As soon as you can see it's a big one, don't read. Or block them, as somebody said, yeah? Don't get involved in it, because you get pulled in it. You get pulled in it, and then you're in it. And you can't get out of it then, because you're in that sort of toxic cycle of being in it. And I thought, I sort of knew that a lot of people would resonate with that. Okay, good. Look, before I sort of wrap this up, because how long have we been going here? I've got this going, 26 minutes, yeah. I'm crying. Yes, I've had them text messages. It hurts so much. Yeah, don't read them. Don't read them. They're designed to do what they do. They're designed to hook you back in. Don't read them. And the problem is they'll always find a way, and they come out of anywhere. Question: are all toxic parents narcissists? Are all toxic parents narcissists? Look, I think the straight answer would be no, probably not. I think you just have to be. I think you have to be careful with labels. I keep saying toxic parents because otherwise I have to say parents that have treated you in a way that's not great and has made you feel like you need to put yourself first. And so, look, it doesn't really matter what they are. Somebody else is saying no, they aren't all narcissistic. Look, what I would say about narcissism is I think we all have narcissistic tendencies. But that doesn't mean that we're like proper full-on narcissists. That's a whole different thing. That's for another live. This poor guy is so tormented. Thank you, Prodias. I feel it. I feel it. What I would say, Prodias, to you, for thinking I'm tormented, come along to my breathwork session on Thursday. It's free. If you can come along and not be abusive to anybody and not say anything, then come along and see if you can have an experience. How do you deal with cutting off a parent? Look, I'm from the UK. I'm from England. How do you deal with cutting off a toxic parent? Look, not very well is probably the answer originally, and for a long time. It's not going to be easy. I have to be true about that. I think that's true. But what I would say is find people that you resonate with, find people that have had similar experiences that are going to understand, because you're going to need that support. Somebody's tried to join. You're going to need that support, and you're going to need people that understand your experiences. So find people that have done the same thing. I think that's really important. If you look on my page here and on Instagram, you're going to find loads of people commenting in the comment section that have the same experiences. I'm actually starting an online, it's a space where you can do lots of breath work, and there'll be lots of like different sessions on there that you can watch and interact with, and there's going to be an actual space on there for people in this situation. So look out for that. That'll be dropping next week. Actually, it's like a monthly community place. The main thing for it is for the breath work, if I'm honest with you, but there will be a space there where you'll be able to find like-minded people as well. And then like try and live a daily life with it, I would say. So rather than thinking I'm cutting them out for good and never going back to them, on a daily basis, you can say to yourself, do I need contact from them today? Do I need to be in contact with them today? Will it improve my day? What emotional impact will it have on me today? And if the answer is to keep going without them in your life, then go and live your day like that. I think if you make it a lifetime thing, then it can become really difficult, right? And then it like becomes uncomprehendable. So make it like a daily thing. That's the quick answer that I would give you. What else have we got here? I'm in Scotland. I was going to try and come to your session. Keep your eyes out, Paige, because I'm hoping to do an in-person session in Edinburgh early next year. But my session on Thursday is online. What else? My mum never supported, trusted, believed in me, and only controlled and manipulated me. Yeah, I hear that. They have their own trauma, but I'm not here to help heal them. 5 years, no contact, me, and I'm happy. Yeah, this is the thing, right? I think people that have experienced trauma, that are at some level trying to seek healing from that need compassion, and we need to support them. I'm an advocate for them. That's the work that I do, right, primarily. But when you've got somebody that has past trauma but is not remotely interested in engaging in anything that looks like healing, to prevent themselves from hurting the people around them, then what? Like what? So we just run around with a dustpan and brush and a set of bandages, bandaging ourselves up as they hurt us, and just sweeping up behind them because they have their past traumas. It's not their fault. No, right? If they're actively engaging in trying not to hurt you and trying to clear up their own stuff, then yeah, let's give them compassion and let's create boundaries and be as supportive as we can where we can. But when they're just walking around expecting you to repeatedly pick it up and then they're jumping in your life randomly out of the blue with a cryptic text message, nah, I don't care what they've been through. They don't get to treat people like that. I don't care. Sorry if I'm missing loads of these out. I try and pick up as much as I can. You're a brave man for talking about your personal life while still remaining composure. Thank you. Can I ask, do you have compassion for your parents who may have their own trauma and not even aware? Yeah, absolutely. I'm compassionate. I think everybody has a level of trauma. My dad died when I was 9. He was quite a violent alcoholic. I have a lot of compassion for him, and I have a lot of compassion for my mum, who's an incredible woman. So, yes, is the answer to that. Constantly getting told you only get one set of parents by people and it makes you feel guilty. I hate that. And by the way, you don't get one set of parents. You get one set of biological parents, right? And actually we can go out in society and we can actively seek circles where we find mothering figures or fathering figures, and ones that are willing to show up to it and be there for us. So you don't get one, you get as many as you want. I wish we could just have the one that born us and they'd always be great, but it's not true, is it? I also hate the idea of parents telling their kid that they fix them or that they are their friend. It kind of excuses their trauma dumping. Yep. How to deal with anger issues inside of your heart. Look, my breathwork session, so I'm not just throwing out advertising myself here. My breathwork session on Thursday is free. One of the things that will do is pull some of that stuff out of your heart. Come and try it on Thursday. It's free. It's absolutely free. Obviously you sign up to my email list as a result of being on there so that you get the recording. But if you don't want to be on my email list after, just cancel it. That's it. But come along, please try it. The reason that I do it is because I want people to recognize how powerful it can be. What else have we got? I've got 5 minutes and then I need to jump maximum. I just want to say you're wise and lovely. Thank you. You don't get to pick your biological parents. No, you don't. I'm from the UK. I'm from England. My mum is 87 and very toxic. Always has been. Boundaries is a good word. Yeah, and boundaries aren't easy, right? Boundaries aren't easy. Particularly if it's with somebody who has no intention of trying to respect them. Right? How easy is it to lay a boundary with somebody that's just willing to kick the thing down? So you have to be gentle with yourself. And I think sometimes you look online and you see people that are if you're still being abused, then it's down to you. You need to lay boundaries and cut them out. It's not that easy, man. It's not that easy. I wish it was. And that's why you have to be compassionate. Do what you can. Do what you can. Be good to yourself. I did my speaker training for NACOA with you, and I must say it helped me heal a lot. Thank you. Oh, amazing. I hope you're coming to the NACOA social event online on Wednesday. Is it toxic for your parents to say, I fed, clothed and fend you, you should feel indebted? Yes, I do think it's toxic to say that. I do think it's toxic to say that. I think people can say stupid things, right? Let me just be clear. Some parents have probably said stupid things. I think we've all said, I'm a parent, I've said stupid things that I didn't mean. But if they say it and really mean it, then yeah, I think it's toxic. Absolutely, I think it's toxic. What do they want, a medal for that? That's the game. That's what happens. So, yes, I do think it's toxic when they truly mean it. Right, and they're trying to tell it to shut you up and to suppress what you're actually feeling, then yes, it is toxic. Sometimes people throw the word toxic around when they don't get their way. Yeah, I think that's true. Maybe that's what I'm doing. I don't think it is, because I'm not talking about myself. In fact, I know it's not. But I understand that's why you've got to be careful using these words, yeah, because they do get swung around a bit. But particularly like when I'm talking online, you kind of have to use these words to get people to kind of see what you're talking about. And then what I think, this is why I do these, because I think I challenge myself and what I'm saying to try and make sure I'm getting close to what the truth might be. What the fuck do I know? That's the reality. What the fuck do I know? And I try not to be too polarizing when I talk about stuff. And what you'll find, if you followed me for a long time, and if you're new, then, you know, and you follow more of me, what you'll find is that I change my mind a lot about stuff. And I think that's good. Like, I think curiosity is the absolute fucking answer. Like, and I think, like, the one mantra that I live by is that I could be wrong about everything that I believe. And what a trip that is to try and, you know, every day try and make myself wrong. I either get to make myself more right, or I learn something new and I go off down a new path. And that's, like, fun and exciting. Right, I'm going to do one more. Do you have, let me do two more, because that's how I feel. Look, I'm a chronic people pleaser. I'm trying to do one more here. Did your relationship with your parent help you become a better person and a parent? Yeah. But as I say, like, it's different, right? Because my parents, sorry, hang on. I don't have toxic parents. But I had an alcoholic parent, and yes, in the end, it helped me to be a better person. But I didn't need help being a better person. I needed help finding out who I was when I was a child. So there's a difference, and I think it's an important one. Do you have a business or charity? I'm a social worker and feel like some of my families could be. NACOA, NACOA is the charity, National Association for Children of Alcoholics. That's supporting children affected by parents drinking. I do have a business, yeah. Check my website. I do some work with social workers and come in and do talks and stuff like that if you need it. Okay, good. Oh, one more. The more I know I don't want anything, pretty much like that for me. Okay, cool. Have you felt pressured for the sake of pleasing your parents? Look, again, I haven't got toxic parents, right? But I grew up in dysfunction because of my dad's drinking. And so, yes, it is NACOA. Spout Like Page just put it there if anybody's wondering about the charity. So, yeah, look, I'm a chronic people pleaser as a result of what I grew up in, right? My dad was drinking. I saw my mum's pain as a child. And rather than, oh, my God, look at this. I don't know what that is. Aladdin's thing. I saw my dad's pain when I was a child, right? I saw my dad's pain. I saw my mum's pain as a child. And so rather than being myself and being supported into exploring who I was, I began to push my emotions down and turn up for them in the way that I thought they needed to be. I became a chronic people pleaser. I abandoned myself and I built a whole personality around how I could fit into the system that I existed in. That's not how it should be for children. And I don't think it's like that for many children. I think dysfunction is the norm. For a lot of people. Look, I'm going to finish it there because it's been like 40 minutes. This will go on YouTube today, maybe. But it will certainly go on there this week. And then I'll get loads of reels chopped up as well and make some smaller content that's easier for people to digest. And I do these regularly on, I think this is the second one I've done on here. I often do them on Instagram as well. If you are about at 12 o'clock, I'll be going live from the NACOA UK account, where I will be going live with Geraldine James, who is an incredibly famous and well-known actor in the UK and globally. If you want to come and watch that, we're going to talk about life growing up with an alcoholic parent and the impacts that can have. So come and join us there, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you.